Daddy, she's freezing.
The biker froze. The snow kept falling. People stepped back. This was a Hell's Angel, not a hero. One wrong move could end everything. Then, suddenly. Before I continue, let me know in the comments, have you subscribed to the channel or not? And also, tell me which city and country you are watching from so that I can thank you personally. Evening was slipping quickly into night. A sharp winter wind cut through the street, the kind that sank deep into the bones. People hurried along the sidewalk with their heads down, not just escaping the cold, but avoiding one another. Amid that moving crowd, a man walked slowly, holding the hand of his young daughter. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black leather jacket and heavy boots. His face was hard, unreadable, shaped by years of survival. As he passed, people instinctively stepped aside. Some tightened their grip on their bags, others pretended to be on their phones. To them, he was a Hell's Angel. The little girl beside him didn't fit that image at all. Layla was 6, maybe 7. A pink woolen hat covered her ears and tiny gloves wrapped around her fingers. Her eyes were wide with curiosity, unafraid of the stares around her. She walked happily, swinging their joined hands, as if this cold street was just another ordinary path. Suddenly, Layla stopped. Her boots sank into the snow-dusted pavement. She squeezed her father's hand. "Daddy." He halted immediately. "What is it?" Layla looked toward the side of the road. There stood a woman, not standing, leaning, barely holding herself upright against a wall. In her arms was a small baby wrapped in a thin, worn blanket. The woman's lips were blue, her hands trembling violently. And the baby was too quiet. Layla's voice dropped to a whisper. "Daddy, he looks really cold." The man followed her gaze and truly saw them for the first time. This was the moment when he could have looked away, like everyone else. Around them, people slowed. Someone murmured, "Why did he stop?" Another person pulled out a phone. A third whispered, "Watch him." The woman noticed them and stiffened instantly. Fear flashed across her face. She pulled the baby closer to her chest, as if bracing for something bad. The Hell's Angel took one step forward. The crowd tensed. Then, slowly, he unzipped his jacket. A ripple of unease passed through the onlookers. But instead of doing what they feared, he took off the jacket and carefully wrapped it around the baby, gently, deliberately, as if handling something fragile. The woman gasped. "No, you'll be cold," she stammered. His answer was calm, almost flat. "He's colder." Layla stepped closer, her face open and sincere. "What's your name?" she asked softly. The woman hesitated, as if no one had asked her that in a very long time. "Sarah," she finally said. Layla smiled. "I'm Layla." That small smile carried more warmth than the jacket ever could. The man glanced around. Eyes were fixed on them, some filled with suspicion, some with curiosity, some with quiet judgment. Then he looked back at Sarah. "How long have you been out here?" Sarah lowered her gaze. "A while," she said. "Just resting." It wasn't the truth, but it was all she could bring herself to say. The man paused. Then he spoke. "Come." Sarah's head snapped up. "Where?" "With me," he replied simply. The crowd reacted immediately. "I knew it. This doesn't look right. Someone should do something." Sarah's heart raced. She instinctively stepped back. Layla reached out and took her hand. "Don't be scared," she said gently.
My daddy isn't bad.
Those words didn't stop the crowd, but they reached Sarah. The man kept his hands open, visible. No rush, no force. "It's close," he said. "Just somewhere warm." Sarah looked down at her baby, then into Layla's hopeful eyes, then at the crowd, watching, whispering, but not helping. Slowly, she nodded. The three of them began to walk. Behind them, the crowd stayed where it was, full of opinions, empty of action. And with every step away from that cold street, one question lingered in the air. Was this help, or the beginning of something much bigger? The hospital glowed from the outside, but the moment they stepped in, the atmosphere changed. Bright white lights, the sharp smell of antiseptic, and the heavy silence that only exists in emergency wards, where every second carries the weight of a life. As Sarah entered, her knees nearly gave way. The Hell's Angel steadied her by the arm, carefully, lightly, aware that even kindness could be misunderstood. Layla walked beside them, quiet but alert, holding her father's hand tightly. The nurse at the reception looked up and froze. Black leather, broad shoulders, a hard face. Suspicion flickered across her eyes. "What seems to be the problem?" she asked, her tone professional but cautious. "The baby is freezing," the man said. Just one sentence, but the nurse's eyes dropped instantly to the child. Her training took over. "Emergency!" she called. Everything moved fast after that. The baby was taken from Sarah's arms. She reached out instinctively, panic rising, but a nurse gently stopped her. "We're taking care of him, Mom." That word, Mom, anchored Sarah to the floor. The door closed. Sarah stood there, arms empty, breath unsteady, eyes locked on the closed door. Layla slipped her small hand into Sarah's. "He'll be okay," she said, with certainty, not doubt. Hospital staff now watched the Hell's Angel more closely. Some eyes were wary, some openly suspicious. A doctor approached. "Who are you?" he asked. "I brought them here," the man replied. It wasn't the answer the doctor was looking for. The doctor turned to Sarah. "Is he with you?" Sarah nodded quickly. "He helped us." The doctor said nothing, but the questions remained. Layla looked up at her father. "Daddy, are they mad?" He bent down slightly. "They're just doing their jobs." But he knew better. This wasn't just a job, it was judgment. The waiting felt endless. The ticking clock on the wall sounded painfully loud. Sarah sank into a chair. Her hands trembled. Her lips moved silently. Prayer or fear, even she wasn't sure. A few feet away, two nurses whispered, "He looks dangerous, but the child's with him. This is strange." The words were soft, but they cut deep. The Hell's Angel remained silent. No explanations, no defense. Sometimes, silence was the only shield. Finally, the door opened. The doctor stepped out. Sarah jumped to her feet. "The baby is very weak," he said carefully. "Severely cold and malnourished. But you brought him in time." Relief crashed through her. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled Layla into a tight hug. Layla smiled. "I told you, Daddy." The doctor turned toward the man. He studied him for a moment, then nodded once. "If you hadn't brought them in, the outcome could have been very different." It wasn't gratitude, but it was acknowledgement. At the reception desk, a clerk spoke up. "We'll need an advance payment." Sarah froze. I'll figure something out," she stammered. The man stepped forward calmly. He took out his wallet and placed it on the counter. I'll pay." The nurse looked up, surprised. "You?" "No questions," he said, closing the wallet. Sarah looked at him, eyes wide. "I'll pay you back." He met her gaze for the first time fully. First, the baby. Through the glass door, the tiny body was now wrapped in warm blankets. The hospital lights no longer felt harsh. They felt hopeful. But the looks around them hadn't completely changed. And one question still lingered in the air. Who was this man really? And why had he chosen to stop? The cold air hit them again as they stepped out of the hospital, sharp and unforgiving. But Sarah's steps no longer shook the way they had before. Her baby was now inside, wrapped in warm blankets, and that single thought was holding her together. The Hell's Angel paused for a moment, then looked at her. "Have you eaten?" The question was simple, unexpected. Sarah hesitated. "No, not for a long time." Layla spoke up immediately. "Daddy, I'm hungry too." He gave a small nod. "Let's go." A short walk away, a small cafe glowed with yellow light. The door opened to the smell of warm food and fresh bread. The moment they stepped inside, conversations dropped. Black leather, broad shoulders, a serious face. The room went quiet. "Why is he here?" someone whispered. A woman pulled her chair slightly back. A man drew his children closer. Sarah felt every stare. Her steps slowed. The Hell's Angel pulled out a chair. "Sit." Not an order, an invitation. Sarah sat down. Layla climbed happily onto her seat. The waiter approached, eyes flicking from the man to Sarah, then to the child. "Order?" "3 soups," the man said, "and something hot." The waiter nodded and left without a word. Whispers resumed. "Why is that woman with him? Is this safe? The kid. It's strange." Sarah lowered her gaze. Her hands began to tremble. Under the table, Layla reached out and squeezed her hand. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "They make good food here." The innocence of it drew a faint smile from Sarah. The food arrived, steaming bowls, simple, warm. Sarah lifted her spoon and closed her eyes at the first taste. This wasn't just soup. It was warmth after days of cold. Layla grinned. "See, Daddy? It's hot." The man glanced around the cafe. Some stares were still sharp. Others had softened. An elderly man at the corner table watched quietly. He leaned toward his wife, whispered something, then nodded slowly. As the meal ended, Layla looked up. "Daddy, should we get some for the baby too?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Oh, no, that's not—" The man raised a hand gently. "We will." He called the waiter. "One more, to go." This time, the waiter smiled. It was a small change, but Sarah noticed. When they stood to leave, some people avoided eye contact, others watched silently. No one said a word. Outside, Layla glanced back at the cafe. "Daddy, everyone was watching us." He paused before answering. "Watching is easy," he said. "Understanding takes effort." As they walked away, Sarah realized something she hadn't allowed herself to think before. Maybe this man wasn't what people saw. But one question still followed her into the cold night. Was this just a meal? Or was it leading somewhere she couldn't yet see? They walked in silence after leaving the cafe. The street lights were dim, but the darkness no longer felt as frightening as before. Sarah held the bag of food tightly, her hands warm, her mind heavy with questions. The Hells Angels stopped in front of an old but solid building. Brick walls, a narrow entrance, stairs that looked like they had seen many years and many stories. "This is my place," he said simply. Sarah froze. She hesitated, as if asking her heart for permission before taking another step. "Just for tonight," he added quickly, "until the baby gets better." The explanation mattered. Sarah nodded, though a trace of fear still lingered inside her. The door opened. The apartment was simple. No luxury furniture, no display of wealth. Just cleanliness, order, and quiet. Layla walked in first. "It's warm in here," she said happily. Sarah entered slowly. She looked at the walls, the window, then at herself, almost checking if this was real. "Sit," the man said. They placed the food on the table. Simple plates, a simple moment. Just as they were about to settle down, there was a knock at the door. Sarah startled. The Hells Angel went to open it. 3 men stood outside, tall, strong, dressed in dark jackets, serious faces, heavy voices. Sarah's heart raced. Instinctively, she looked at Layla. But Layla didn't panic. She smiled and asked, "Who are you?" One of the men laughed softly. "We're his friends." Friends? Alarm bells rang in Sarah's mind. Then, without warning, one of them placed a large shopping bag on the floor. "This is for the baby." Another stepped forward with a box. "Warm clothes." The third smiled and added, "And these, toys." Sarah was stunned. This wasn't what she had expected. The Hells Angel simply nodded. "Come in." They entered quietly, shoes off, voices low. One of them asked gently, "How's the baby?" "Better," the man replied. "That's good," another said. "We've seen too much at hospitals." Sarah watched silently. These were the same kind of men she had feared moments ago. Yet her fear was slowly melting away. One of the friends handed Layla a small teddy bear. "This is for your little brother." Layla's eyes widened. "Brother?" The men smiled. "Not yet," the Hells Angel said, "but someday." The words were simple, but they carried a future inside them. Tears filled Sarah's eyes. She didn't speak, because if she did, she might cry. The friends didn't stay long. Before leaving, one of them looked at the Hells Angel. "They're safe," he said. "You did the right thing." The door closed. Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't empty. Sarah spoke softly. "I was wrong about you." The man met her eyes. "Most people are." Layla sat on the floor, lining up the toys. For the first time, a soft laugh echoed in the room. Sarah felt it then. This house wasn't dangerous. It was just different. But one question still remained. Was this only a temporary shelter, or the first door to a new life? Morning light slipped quietly through the small apartment window. It wasn't bright or golden, just soft enough to feel gentle. The kind of light that didn't demand attention, only presence. Sarah woke up slowly. For a brief second, panic tried to rise in her chest. Then she heard it. A sound so small, so fragile, it made her freeze. A baby's breath. Steady. Real. She turned her head. Her baby lay on the bed beside her, wrapped in a clean blanket, his tiny chest rising and falling. Color had returned to his face. Not much, but enough to make the fear loosen its grip. Sarah pressed her hand to her mouth. Tears came silently. On the other side of the room, Layla sat cross-legged on the floor. She was arranging the toys from the night before, lining them up carefully as if they mattered. When she noticed Sarah awake, she smiled. "Good morning," she whispered. "Don't talk loud, he's sleeping." Sarah nodded, her throat tight. Layla crawled closer to the bed and looked at the baby with serious concentration. "He's very small," she said thoughtfully. "But he's strong. I can tell." Sarah managed a soft smile. "You think so?" Layla nodded firmly. "Strong babies sleep like this." She gently placed the teddy bear near the baby's arm, making sure it didn't touch his face. "So he won't be lonely," she explained. The apartment felt different in that moment. Still small, still simple, but no longer empty. In the kitchen, the Hells Angel stood quietly, making tea. He moved slowly, deliberately, careful not to disturb the fragile peace. When he glanced toward the room and saw Layla and Sarah together, something unreadable crossed his face. Not pride, not relief, something softer. He placed 2 cups on the table. "Warm," he said. Sarah stepped out carefully, as if afraid the moment would break if she moved too fast. She took the cup with both hands. "Thank you," she said. This time, the words didn't feel heavy. They sat at the small table. No rush, no awkward silence, just the quiet sounds of morning. Layla climbed onto a chair, swinging her legs. "Today," she announced, "he's my friend." Sarah looked at her. "Your friend?" Layla nodded. "I'll teach him things." "Like what?" Layla thought for a moment. "How to laugh, and how to not be scared." The words hit Sarah harder than she expected. Later, Layla sat on the floor again, rolling a toy gently back and forth. She spoke to the baby in a soft, sing-song voice, telling him stories that didn't need logic, about clouds and parks and ice cream. Sarah watched from the doorway. She hadn't seen this in a long time. A home that sounded like this. A place where fear didn't fill every corner. The man passed by quietly, carrying a folded blanket. He placed it near the bed without a word. Sarah finally spoke. "You don't have to do all this." He paused. "I know." That was all. By afternoon, the apartment felt lived in, not owned, not permanent, but alive. Layla helped Sarah wash a few dishes, splashing more water than necessary. "You're doing it wrong," Layla said seriously. Sarah laughed, out loud this time. The sound surprised them both. Later, Layla sat beside the baby again, holding his tiny fingers. "When you get big," she whispered, "I'll show you my favorite park." Sarah turned away, blinking back tears. The Hells Angel stood near the window, watching the street below. People passed by, unaware of the quiet transformation happening above them. For the first time in a long while, Sarah felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not safety, not certainty, but belonging. That evening, as Layla yawned and leaned against her father, Sarah tucked the blanket around her baby and whispered, "Good night." Layla echoed it softly. "Good night, little friend." The apartment lights dimmed, and in that small, borrowed space, something fragile but real took root. A home built not from walls, but from kindness and the simple courage to care. The morning began with quiet determination. Sarah stood near the small window, adjusting her coat while rocking her baby gently in her arms. He was awake now, still fragile, but alert. His eyes followed light and movement, as if learning the world piece by piece. Behind her, Layla tied her shoes with great seriousness.
Today is important, Layla said. Daddy said so.
Sarah smiled nervously.
Yes, very important.
The Hell's Angel stepped forward. There's a small reception job, he said. Nothing hard. And they said you can bring the baby. Sarah froze for a second.
With him?
She asked, looking down. He nodded. They know. She hesitated. She had been judged for far less.
I don't want trouble,
she whispered. He met her eyes calmly. You won't be alone. That was enough. The building was modest, clean glass doors, a quiet lobby, and a small reception desk near the entrance. Nothing impressive, nothing threatening. Still, when Sarah walked in with a baby in her arms, heads turned, some with curiosity, some with doubt. The receptionist training her glanced at the child, then at Sarah.
You can keep him here, she said,
pointing to a chair beside the desk.
Just don't let him cry too much.
Sarah nodded quickly.
I won't.
She placed the baby carefully in a padded carrier and sat down. Her hands trembled slightly as she answered the first call.
Good morning,
she said softly.
Reception.
Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. From a few steps away, the Hell's Angel waited, arms crossed, not interfering. Layla stood beside him, watching proudly.
She's doing it,
Layla whispered. He nodded. A woman approached the desk. Are you new? She asked, eyeing the baby.
Yes,
Sarah replied, bracing herself.
The
woman said, then smiled.
He's beautiful.
The tension eased, just a little. Minutes turned into an hour. Sarah learned the routine. Names, appointments, directions. The baby slept through most of it. When he stirred, Layla rushed forward.
I'll help,
she said seriously, rocking the carrier. People watched. Some smiled. Some whispered. But no one complained. During a short break, Sarah stepped aside and exhaled.
I didn't think I could do this,
she admitted. You can, the man replied. You are. At the end of the day, the supervisor nodded. You did well. Come back tomorrow. Sarah's eyes filled.
Thank you.
Outside, the air felt lighter. Layla skipped ahead.
She worked today,
she announced to no one in particular. Sarah laughed, half disbelief, half relief. As they walked home, Sarah looked down at her baby.
Did you hear that?
She whispered.
I have a job.
The baby stirred, as if answering. Behind them, the Hell's Angel walked quietly, hands in his pockets. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Because that day wasn't about rescue anymore. It was about standing. And with every small step Sarah took forward, the distance between survival and life grew just a little shorter. The envelope felt heavier than it looked. Sarah held it with both hands as they stood in the quiet hallway outside the reception office. Inside was her first week's pay. Not much, but enough to mean something. Enough to mean movement. She hadn't stopped staring at it since they left work. I didn't think they'd keep me, she said softly, almost afraid the words might disappear if spoken too loudly. They didn't keep you, the Hell's Angel replied calmly. You earned it. Layla walked between them, humming to herself, occasionally peeking into the stroller to make sure the baby was still there. He didn't cry today, she reported proudly. He's good at jobs. Sarah smiled. That evening, instead of turning toward the apartment they had been borrowing, the man took a different street. Sarah noticed immediately. "This way?" she asked. "Yes." They stopped in front of a small building, older, quieter, tucked between two larger ones. The paint was faded and the stairs were narrow, but the lights worked and the entrance was clean. He reached into his pocket. Sarah's heart tightened. She didn't know why, but something felt different. They climbed to the second floor. He stopped at a door near the end of the hall. Then he placed a key in her hand. "For you." Sarah stared at it. I don't understand." "It's a rental," he said. "Small, close to your work." Her breath caught. "I can't." She stopped herself. She wasn't saying no because she didn't want it. She was saying it because she was afraid of what it meant. "I'll pay," she said quickly. "I just need time." He nodded. "You'll pay the rent, yourself." She looked up, confused. "The first month is covered," he continued evenly. "After that, it's yours to handle. No favors." The word favors mattered. Sarah's fingers tightened around the key. Layla tugged her sleeve. "Can we see it?" The door opened. The apartment was small, but it was empty. No borrowed blankets, no shared space. Just one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a window that let in the late afternoon light. Sarah stepped inside slowly. She set the stroller down, looked around, then sat on the floor. She didn't cry right away. She just breathed. "This is..." Her voice failed her. "Enough," the man said. Layla ran to the window. "There's a tree," she announced, "and a place to sit." Sarah laughed quietly through tears. "I've never had a key before," she admitted. He leaned against the doorframe. "Everyone should." They didn't stay long. There wasn't much to do yet, no furniture, no decorations. But when they left, Sarah locked the door behind them. The click echoed in the hallway. That sound stayed with her all night. The next few days passed quickly. Work, the baby growing stronger, small routines forming. On moving day, Sarah carried boxes up the stairs, light ones, but hers. Layla helped, taking her role very seriously. "This goes in the kitchen," she said, pointing. "No, not like that." When everything was finally inside, Sarah sat on the floor again. The apartment wasn't perfect, but it was quiet, and it was hers. That evening, there was a knock. Sarah froze. Then she remembered she had a door now, and a choice. She opened it. Layla stood there, holding a small plant in a paper cup. "For your window," she said. Behind her, the man waited, hands in his pockets. Sarah took the plant carefully. "Thank you," she said. This time, she meant it without fear. As they walked away, Layla waved. "See you tomorrow," she called. Sarah closed the door and leaned against it. She looked at her baby sleeping peacefully, then at the key on the table. For the first time, she wasn't surviving inside someone else's space. She had crossed a line, not into comfort, not into certainty, but into something just as powerful: independence. And outside, down the hallway, the man paused for a moment. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Because some help isn't meant to be followed. It's meant to be left behind. Spring arrived without asking permission. The air was softer now, the kind that carried laughter instead of wind. Trees along the street had begun to bloom, their branches dotted with pale green leaves that caught the sunlight like small promises. Sarah pushed the stroller slowly along the park path. Her baby sat upright now, bundled but alert, eyes wide as he watched the world pass by. Every sound seemed new to him, the rustle of leaves, the squeak of swings, the distant bark of a dog. Ahead, Layla ran toward the playground. "Wait for me!" she called back, already laughing. Sarah smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached her eyes without effort. They had come to the park every week since moving into the apartment. At first, Sarah had sat stiffly on the bench, watching everything too closely. But over time, her shoulders had relaxed. The bench had become familiar. The path had become routine. And routines, she had learned, were a kind of safety. Layla reached the swings and stopped, turning back. "Can he come too?" she asked seriously. Sarah laughed softly. "Not yet. Soon." Layla nodded, satisfied with that answer, and began to swing, pumping her legs higher and higher. The baby made a small sound, half gasp, half giggle. Sarah leaned down. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "He likes it." She lifted him carefully and held him close. His tiny hand curled around her finger with surprising strength. "You're strong," she murmured. "You always were." A few benches away, the Hell's Angel sat quietly, a coffee in his hand. He wasn't watching the park as much as he was watching them, without staring, without hovering, just present. Layla jumped off the swing and ran back. "He laughed," she announced. "He heard him." Sarah nodded. "He did." Layla crouched in front of the stroller, peering inside with great focus. "When you grow up," she told the baby, "I'll teach you how to swing really high." The baby blinked at her. "And I'll protect you," Layla added, as if this were obvious. Sarah felt her chest tighten, not with fear this time, but with something warmer. Belonging. Around them, other families filled the park. Parents talked, children shouted. Life moved forward in small, ordinary ways. No one stared. No one whispered. They were just another family in the park. Sarah sat back on the bench, letting the moment exist without questioning it. For a long time, she had been afraid to hope, afraid that if she leaned into happiness, it would disappear. But today, she let herself stay. Layla climbed onto the bench beside her. "Do you like your house?" she asked. Sarah thought for a moment. "Yes," she said. "I do." Layla smiled, satisfied. "Good." The Hell's Angel stood up slowly and walked over. "We should head back soon," he said gently. "It's getting late." Sarah nodded. "Okay." As they walked toward the exit, Sarah stopped. She turned to him. "I never said it properly," she began. "For everything you did." He shook his head slightly. "You did the hard part." She wanted to argue, but she understood what he meant. They reached the gate. Layla waved at the park. "Bye," she said, as if it might wave back. As they parted ways, Layla looked up at her father. "Daddy?" "Yes?" "Remember when everyone was scared of you?" He gave a small smile. "Yes." Layla thought for a moment. "They were wrong." He didn't answer right away. He didn't need to. Sarah walked home with the stroller, the path familiar beneath her feet. She unlocked her door, stepped inside, and set her bag down. The apartment smelled like clean laundry and sunlight. She placed her baby in the crib and watched him drift to sleep. Then she sat at the small table, the key resting beside her, still there, still real. Outside, laughter echoed faintly from the park. Inside, Sarah closed her eyes. For the first time, She wasn't waiting for something to go wrong. She was living. And somewhere across the street, the Hell's Angel walked home with Layla, her hand wrapped tightly around his.
"Daddy," she said sleepily, "we helped, right?"
He nodded. "Yes," he said. "We did." The world didn't change that day, but one small corner of it did. And sometimes, that's enough. We judge faces before we hear stories. We label people before we understand them. And too often, fear makes us look away when someone needs us most. This story reminds us that kindness doesn't wear a uniform, and heroes don't always look safe. Sometimes, all it takes is one jacket, one question, or one brave step to change an entire life. If this story touched you, maybe it wasn't just a story. Maybe it was a mirror. If you believe humanity has no appearance, tap like. If you've ever misjudged someone, comment, "I will do better." If this story moved you, share it. Someone needs it today. And for more real, heart-touching stories, subscribe and turn on notifications. One video may not change the world, but one changed mindset can.